So I'm here to talk about Truth and Triumph. When I first did this presentation, it was in fact for the Baronia Anglican men's breakfast, and so that's why there's a bit of the truth element came into it. We know who I am, so that we go through that one. I'm a member of the Triumph Sports Owners Association. There's two Triumph car clubs in Victoria. One is more focused on the sedans, anything that's Triumph related, the 2500s and the 2000s and things like that. Having said that, there are members of that club that have TRs, or the sports cars, and the other club is the Triumph Sports Owners Association Victoria. We're over 50 years old as a club, and it caters for all the TR cars, so TR2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, Spitfire, GT6, Stag sort of got his foot in both camps because they couldn't make up their mind whether it was a sports car or whether it was a sedan. And so we've got 350, I won't say odd members, but we've got 350 members. We meet regularly over at the pub in Balloon, Manningham, and have activities pretty much every month. So there'll be either track activities or early morning runs, or there's a coffee morning for those of us who don't have to go to work anymore. And we've got to drive at the Grand Prix a number of times, doing driver parade laps, have the cars on display, all that sort of stuff. So we do a little bit of charity work, and it's a lot of good fun, a lot of good camaraderie. So let's see what comes up next. Okay, now bearing in mind that I was doing this for the Anglican men's breakfast, so the Triumph is the only car that you'll find mentioned in the Bible. You won't find Alpines. You won't find Holdens. You find things like this. The Bible says, the roar of Moses' triumph is heard in the hills. So historically these cars go back a long way. And Joshua's triumph was heard throughout the land. This is the truth. This is the truth. We can't dispute the book. So let's, hello, what's happened to my presentation? Yeah, see, I've been struck by lightning. Okay. The origins of the Triumph name, in fact, go back to bicycles and motorcycles. And these good, here we go, Siegfried Bettman and Morris Schuch sold Triumph bicycles in London in 1885. We got some intruders here. They started manufacturing in Coventry. Coventry was became a well-known location for the auto industry. 1902, Triumph motorcycles were released. 1918, Triumph was Britain's largest motorcycle manufacturer. Who's ever heard of the Dawson Car Company? I hadn't, but anyway, there was a lot of little start-up manufacturers back in those days, and same thing happened in America. 1927, a little car called the Super 7 came out. They had success with the cars. The Monte Carlo Rally was a very gruelling rally, but the Gloria, which was a real class car, took that one out. 1930 became the Triumph Motor Company. They split off. They released the Southern Cross and the Gloria cars. We've got some pictures of those later. Donald Healy from the Healy ultimately went on to become part of the Healy Group. He joined the Triumph Motor Company. Don't like all these foreign noises over there. They also produced a car called the Dolomite, which had a straight 8 engine. Now, considering we're back in the 30s, that was pretty Ford technology. It also shared a lot in competition with an Alfa Romeo at the time. And like all these good things, they went into receivership. How's the audio down the back there, Jack? Is it all right?
Beautiful.
Oh, good. The rest of it's a bit, I think. 39 this was wartime, so you can imagine that car sales sort of fell through the floor at the time. And Mr. Hitler came along and dropped the bomb on the factory, and that was unpleasant. There's a Triumph Gloria, and as you can see, that's a Victorian registered motor car. The little sign says, "Unless you're willing to pose in the nude, don't lean on my motor car." I think that's fair. It's not my car. Standard Motor Company bought the brand and the remains of the Triumph Motor Company. Come on, computer, start working. Who remembers the 1800 Roadster? Anyone watch Bergerac, the old TV detective? He had one of those, grossly overweight and grossly underpowered, but a rather unique looking thing. So Standard made the saloons and Triumph made the sports cars. And the TR2 was the first one off the ranks. We had a member of the club for many years who ordered the Triumph TR2 from the UK, and he looked at the information sheet and it said, what was it? Red. Geranium. Yeah, so he bought this thing, he thought he was going to get a red car, and when he arrived out here it was pink. Poor Geoff was stuck with that for the rest of his time, but anyway. So the TR2 was the first of the cars on the road. 59, Standard Herald, the standard name was dropped with the introduction of the Triumph Herald. We've all seen little Triumph Heralds floating around. I've got some pictures, we'll see those in a minute. They had a lot of things in them. There's a Roadster that was on display at the Grand Prix a few years ago. In the back of it, there was a little, I think if I can work there, there's a little dicky seat in the back. The boot lid folded back out, and there was little windscreens that would pop up to keep the wind out of your face. Pretty uncomfortable, but having said that, it was an interesting motor car. But there's a little 4-cylinder engine doing its best to keep it rolling. 1960, this is when the problems really set in. Leyland Motors bought Triumph and turned what was left of a good company into not much. It then became the British Leyland Motor Company. 1981, the last Triumph, which was a rebadged Honda, for goodness sake. And then 1984, the name disappeared altogether from the showrooms. TR2 in 1953 was released. The sports cars?
What was the earliest Triumph?
Yes. Yeah. BMW still hold the trademark to this day. There's always rumours running around as to whether they will introduce a car, but we'll have to wait to see it before we really believe it's going to happen. Sorry? There was a total of 63 different Triumph models made during the course of the car's life. Now, that was one real special engine that they made to put into a car called the TRS, a racing engine. So pay particular attention to the mechanical features of that engine.
They're not with us, they're SUs.
So we've all got a picture in mind of what that one is. So what does the motor and that lady have in common?
Nothing, there's 4 carvings on the one on the motor.
No, well, the truth is, they were both called Sabrina. Up there. All right, that's a little bit of nonsense. That's the car with the Sabrina engine. It's not a Sunbeam. Okay. What do these two vehicles have in common?
Same motor.
The same basic engine. Now, this is the cars, the TR3 competing at Sebring in the 12-hour race. And for those of you not aware, if I press the right button, that car there, car 43, and that one up there is car 44. They happen to be MGA 1600 motors. And that car there, car 44, won its class, came 14th overall in the 12-hour race. It now resides in Melbourne. Happens to be owned by my brother-in-law. He found it as a $400 wreck in a Florida panel beater's yard and shipped it back to Australia and had it restored. And it's in fact just got back into Melbourne, having gone back over there for the 50th anniversary of the race. So needless to say, he's pretty proud of it. Now, over the years, Triumph has featured in quite a lot of films. Probably been surprised. The Triumph 1300 wasn't so well known out here. That was the top one. Wrong, go back. That was Carry On Constable. That was a James Bond one. This is a Top Gear one. This was Elvis. So there's been a few over the years where they've played their little role, their little cameo roles in the movies. Well, there was a TR1, but it's not so well known. TR2, 3, 3A, 3B, 4, 4A, 5, 550. The 5 had a fuel-injected motor. 250 went to America with carburettors. The 6 went to America with carburettors, came to Australia with fuel injection. Mechanical fuel injection. Yes, it was the first production car with fuel injection. Sorry? Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Excuse me, what is mechanical injection? I thought it was
No, it's electronic now, but it's all, yeah, the Mayflower, yeah, well that was a pretty unique motor car. We used to have one, and we moved from Melbourne to Mildura, and Mum and Dad and myself and my sister and my brother and my grandmother and my grandfather were in that car for the trip to Mildura, and it had a 1300 side valve motor in it, 3 on the tree, and I discovered only a year or two ago that they'd sold their house in East Bentley. They were buying a new house in Mildura, and we actually took the money in the glove box from Melbourne to Mildura to purchase the new house. You know, you wouldn't even contemplate doing it today because the glove box is not big enough for the $500,000. So that, gee, you know, Australia's gone through some interesting times with cars over the years. Sorry? No, it had a 6-cylinder, 2-litre 6. Yeah. And the Dolly, there was a couple of versions of the Dolly as well, and they also had a hot little motor in them as well. There was a Sprint. Yeah, and they're still going. In total, Triumph produced 1.94 million cars. Here's a bit of a breakdown of the production of the different cars over the years. I think the TR6 in the end of it became the biggest producer. The car went to America. That's where it really gained its fame. I didn't realise I made 34,000 Mayflowers. I was quite surprised with Look how many Heralds they made. Now the TR5s and TR250s, I started to talk about that before. The TR5 was a 150 horsepower, 2.5 litre 6-cylinder motor. They did ship some to America to the East Coast, but then they discovered that they wouldn't meet the Californian pollution regulations, so they dropped the fuel injection, converted the motor back to a 175 Strombergs 2, so it dropped from 150 to 104 brake horsepower. And the 4As, which had preceded it, were in fact faster and better performing than the 250s. So that's why they didn't make very many of them. It was a bit of a in-between model, because the TR6 was the next one to come out. And once again, the bulk of, I think about 80,000 TR6s went to America. About 10, 11,000 were made with fuel injection, and they came to the rest of the world. There was two motors in the TR6. There was the original one, the 1968 motor, was a 150 horsepower motor, and then in 1972 they detuned it, made a few mods to it, miled the cam, tuned it back to 123 horsepower to try and make it a bit more tractable, a bit more reliable. The mechanical fuel injection was beset by the same problems as other Lucas products. Yeah, all that stuff. Anyway, TR7 was a move away from the rigid chassis construction that all the other cars had been a feature of. It was the first of the monocoque cars. Having said that, it was still popular in numbers. And then the TR8. The TR8 was a V8. There's a few around with labelled 4.4s in them as well. And people have also done that to the Stag over here. Yeah, same motor that went to Saab, 4-cylinder. Stag was beset with a lot of heating issues in its early days, but all those have been problems that have been sorted out by the previous owner. So when you do get to buy one, you get a reliable car.
No, you don't. It still leaks water.
Does not. I've got one. It doesn't leak water.
Especially the oil leak.
Yeah, that's all right. Anyway, overall, Triumph made 1.94 million cars, which is not a bad effort in the overall scheme of things. I talked about TSOA. The original one was formed in England in 53, 54 in the USA, 1960 established in Australia. So we celebrated 50 years just a couple of years ago. Used to meet in the AMI building up in Elizabeth Street, where I think Toyota was last seen, because that was back in the days when AMI had a motor plant in Melbourne. No. It started in 1960. So we're now 2012, so 50 years ago.
The oldest continuous running TSOA?
So in the world, yeah. We're affiliated with CAMS, AOMC and MSCA. CAMS is the Confederation of Australian Motorsports, AOMC, the Australian, come on Phil, Motoring Clubs, and the MSCA is the Mark Sports Cars. Lots of technical books. Graham Robson is a great author who helps with the production of all good books. So our club maintains a very good library, and most individuals have got these in their collections as well. And then in the States and in the UK, there are a number of companies. Moss is one, and there's Rimmer Brothers, and there's a few others like that who are very keen to supply spare parts. And then you've got people in Australia like the Healy factory who are agents if you don't want to import the stuff yourself. So getting parts hasn't really been a problem. So we have a number of activities that the cars feature in. That one there was a bit of a personal one because that's my daughter. And So the Stag there and the couple of Beamers. There is another photo that I got. The Beamers have got the bonnet up and the Stag has got its bonnet down. And if you remember at the club, you would understand that joke because everyone reckons Stags have always got their bonnets up. And in the past, we used to have our concours events on the land that's in between the Willis Room and the theatre over the back there. So that's one of those sunny days. Another event we did down to the Flinders pub, winter day, and this one was 2003. I was lucky enough to have the car in that race, and they drew David Coulthard's name out of the hat, and so I was chauffeuring David Coulthard around the track. Just there where the little dot is, right on top of the windscreen, was a little UHF antenna. The car was fitted out with video and audio and the link up to a helicopter. There was a little camera mounted on the crossbar just there, and David was wired for sound, so while I was driving him round, Eddie everywhere was talking to him, and so we featured a fair bit on the TV. But that is a real hoot, getting a gig like that, and 120,000 screaming fans around the track while we're doing that. There we are. It's okay, Marlborough sponsored this program tonight. Yeah, that date's wrong. In fact, it should be 2003. That's the official Grand Prix photograph. So, yeah, he was a nice guy, but unfortunately he didn't listen to what I told him and he went out and lost. We did another, that was the V8 driver parade. That we did, who did we have? Stevie Richards and Paul Dumbrell in the car on the day we did that one. And we weren't actually supposed to take that photo, but so we didn't take it. Phillip Island, there's events down there. They had the historics every year, and there's a couple of the club cut. Whoops, go back. Come on, go back. There we go. A couple of our club cars here. There's an event up at Winton every year, a 6-hour race, and we try and mount a couple of teams in that. We've done very well with that over the years as well. That's my other car. That's the TR6. This was a Concours day out at Werribee Mansion. Unlike the English clubs who have access to all these manors and castles and lovely destinations, we're sadly lacking here, and it's nigh on impossible getting in the Como. Government House doesn't open the doors, so you're left with Werribee. But it's a nice spot. So. Yeah, right, true. There's a lot of TR owners don't like driving on gravel roads. They get a bit thing about that. So my car is a 1974 model. The motor's been rebuilt back to 1968 specs to hopefully make it go a bit better, but having said that, it's not quite as smooth as the later ones. But it's a lot of fun.
Geoff, can you elaborate on your story about going back to school and doing panel beating?
Oh yeah, well, yeah. Before I got this car, I actually had a TR250, a left-hand drive one that I'd bought. It was an imported car out of the States, and of course you see the car and it looks all right, and then when you start to prepare it to do some work on it, you start finding the rust and the bog and all these other things. So I went back to Dandenong TAFE night school to learn panel beating and metal bashing and spraying and all that sort of stuff, with a view to restoring that car to something of its original glory. Didn't quite get there because in the meantime I got interrupted with back surgery, and people wonder why I drive sports cars still to this day, but you've got to have something to forget about the other things. But the panel beating course was great. We actually had a lot of fun doing that. Make a wheel cap, yeah, that's the one. Start with a wheel cap, and then after that you're allowed to move on to other things, and then every week you take your mudguard in and you'd cut out the rust, and then you'd beat up and roll up and form up and weld in the new piece, and then you'd have to go over with the lead and LEAD, lead filler, to make it nice, and the instructor would ultimately pass it, and then you'd move on to the next piece. But so I did that for quite a while, but did a chassis restoration along the way. It was really killing me, so I got rid of that and bought this one, which is already done, and enjoyed the fruits of someone else's labours. Having said that, I still spent a lot of money on it. Right, 2006, when we did the TR6 driver parade lap at the Albert Park circuit, so we all met down at the St Kilda Marina in the early hours of the morning. And if ever you've been to a Grand Prix, they are timed down to the minute in terms of the way they roster events and functions and people coming onto the circuit and all that sort of stuff. So we met at the marina, all formed up, and the gaggle of TR6s, 25 of them, is a pretty spectacular sort of thing. It turns a few heads as you drive along the road. You eventually get up into the circuit, and there I was. This time I had Alonso. How good was that? He was the second last name drawn out of the hat, and I was lucky. So we took him out, showed him where to brake, where to turn, where to accelerate, and he went out and won the race. And I don't think it had anything to do with me. But he was a very quiet guy. Couldn't really talk with him. And the guy in the passenger seat had won some competition. None of the drivers even knew this was going to be happening, but so we were ferrying 2 people around on the day, just part of the Grand Prix organisation's attempts to G up the process. We were very fortunate. We had a club member who was a track marshal, and he was inside all the fences and all that sort of stuff, and he was able to take photos of the cars. So we got a reasonable image, because the official Grand Prix photograph was disgusting. There's the 1934 Dolomite 8-cylinder 2-litre, which is not a lot of capacity. That's the car, which was I don't really know a lot about that car, but I found this line drawing and I thought, that's a pretty neat sort of thing. So that's just a little of the Triumph motor cars. If the weather had been a bit more conducive, I might have come out. Maybe at the Christmas party I'll bring one of them down and you can see it. Yeah. Now I've got some other images here. How are we going for time? 9 o'clock. If you bear with me for a minute, we'll try and get out of here. Just a collection of a few photos that James May. Did anyone see this Top Gear challenge? Losers. Anyway. Okay, I'll swap it out. This is the MGA. This is car 44 that I showed you in that photo earlier at Sebring. So this is the car after he had restored it all, and like I say, he's just been over to America for the anniversary, and he drove it from Florida up to New York and put it back in a box and shipped it back to Australia. So it's conservatively valued at about $250,000. A bit hard to comprehend, but anyway, that's the way it goes. So it's they took standard MGA coupe or hardtop cars off the production line, sent them over to the competition department, and then did some minor works to them to lighten them and sort of make them go a bit better, balance the motors. Put a little yellow light on the roof, and that helps. Bit more wind resistance. Yeah, so there's the Stag at the. These are in no particular order, so we're going to be jumping around a little bit. Stevie Richards and Paul Dumbrell. We were driving around the top end of the lake, and we were restricted to 40 kilometres an hour in the drive. And Paul said to Steve, he said, "Where do you where do you look? What is your reference point when you come round this corner before you brake for the next one? And he said, oh, there's a black mark on the road. Oh, I said, what speed are you doing when you come round here? And he said, oh, about 200. Now, we couldn't see the black mark at 40 kilometres an hour, but at 200 there's a black mark, and so they brake. So it was quite an eye-opener to hear these guys chatting away in the back, and Paul was still relatively new to V8s at that stage, and Steve was a bit of a past master at it. Oh, that was another one of our Concours days. That was down at Monash, and that's what the inside of the car looks like. So nice wood grain dash and big instruments so you can see what's going on. And so there, in the bottom right hand corner, there's the injector distribution, and then there's all your lines going over to each of the 6 ports where the fuel gets metered into the head. And if you hold those lines, you can feel the little valve throttling and each amount of fuel being distributed into the motor. But yeah, she's a fun trolley. I want this button here. We had an RACV display day at, no, sorry, this was a Concours, wasn't it? Yeah, this was the Concours on Freshwater Place, outside Maury's apartment. And he came down and had a chat with me on that particular occasion that we were there. There's car 43 and 44. We're back in Florida again when they were racing back in 1960. Son Matthew, that's his little TR7 that he used to have, till he got married. Sold the car to build a garage. So when we have our Concours events, there's all sorts of categories that people can participate in, and one of them is what they call the restoration category. So that's what the chassis of one of the cars looks like. That was a TR5 that a guy was building up. Yep. Electric overdrive on 3rd and 4th. And so there's the rear end. It's an independent rear suspension. A pretty good system. There's the Stag. It's a 3-litre V8 single overhead cam, 145 brake horsepower, and it gets up and moves too. That used to have a top speed of about 118 mile an hour, but I wouldn't like to be doing it now. Sorry? Yeah, that's still the original motor. It's which is not bad for a 38-year-old motor car. And Bob comes along to help from time to time. That was a wings and wheels day that we did out at Lilydale one time. And the grass was freshly cut and you could smell it burning on the exhaust pipes. But that was this year's Grand Prix. We had cars on display. We had pretty much all models on display. There's my white one on the left-hand side. That's Mr. Flood's TR8, the Rover 3.5 litre. He'd been rallying that one, but it was out for an event at the Grand Prix as well. Our most recent Concours day we had out at Macedon. So on Concours days the cars are opened up for scrutiny by the judges. It being a wet day, we got away with not having to be pristine underneath the car. But they come along and look at the carpet and look at the fit of the doors and look for the chrome and the toolkit and the condition of the wheels and the engine bay and the interior, and points are deducted, and ultimately you get a winner. So, but it's a lot of fun. And we raised $1,000 for, what did we go to this year? Yeah, it was Children's Hospital. So anyway, that was, you don't mind doing that sort of thing. That's what happens when the motor fails. Yeah. there's another one of those things. With all that stuff bolted on the car, you wonder it ever went at all, but anyway. And we're back to the beginning again. So, folks, thank you very much for putting up with me, and I hope you enjoyed a little bit about the Triumph Motor Company and the Triumph Sports owners and the TRs in general, and it's just another voice, and but it's a lot of fun. Thank you.